Thanks for watching and liking the video. He called me worthless trash in front of everyone. No shouting, no emotion, just that quiet disgust that cuts deeper than yelling. I remember the sound of silverware stopping, chairs shifting, the silence that followed. My wife didn't look up. Her father kept eating like nothing happened. That night, I barely slept. The next morning, I called my lawyer. I used to think dignity came from patience, from proving yourself. When I married into that family, I told myself I'd earn their respect through work, not through last names. I started in the lowest position in his company. No favors, no shortcuts. For years, I came early, stayed late, took projects no one wanted. I believed effort would make me part of their world. Her father, Richard, had built everything from his father's money. People called him a self-made man, but everyone in town knew that wasn't true. He liked reminding others how hard he worked, usually while someone else did the actual work. Still, I respected him. I thought if I just kept my head down, one day he'd see me as more than the guy who married his daughter. For a while, it looked like I was right. Promotions came, slow but steady. I started managing small teams. We bought a house, nothing like theirs, but enough to make me proud. Family dinners were polite. I was tolerated, which felt like progress. Then came the fundraiser. Big table, important people, cameras. He asked me to give a short thank you speech, said it would look good. I spoke for 2 minutes, nothing fancy, just gratitude. When I sat down, he smiled that tight smile and leaned close. Next time, he said, try not to sound like some warehouse clerk pretending to be one of us. I forced a laugh. People around us laughed too, not knowing it wasn't a joke. Later, when the waiters cleared plates, he stood to make his toast. He talked about family, loyalty, legacy. Then he looked straight at me and said, some men try to marry their way up, but no matter how high they climb, trash is still trash. No one moved. No one said a word. My wife's eyes stayed on her plate. I didn't argue. I didn't leave. I just sat there, hands on the table, until he finished his glass. That was the night something inside me stopped bending. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. My wife was still asleep, her phone buzzing quietly on the nightstand. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my shoes on the floor. Everything felt still, like the air before a storm. I didn't feel angry, just clear. I showered, shaved, dressed in a clean shirt, and drove to the office like it was any other Monday. But something in me had shifted. When I walked in, people nodded like nothing happened. Maybe they didn't know. Or maybe they did, and just pretended not to. That's how things worked there. Silence kept the machine running. I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. The company logo filled the screen. My name under it meant less than I thought. At 9, Richard's assistant called. He wants to see you. No explanation. No tone. Just an order. I walked into his office. The man didn't even look up. He was reading a newspaper, pen tapping the desk. Rough night, he said. I stayed quiet. He went on. You should remember where you came from. This family took you in. Don't make us regret it. That word, us, hit harder than anything he'd said the night before. It was always us and you. His world and mine. I stood there, hands behind my back, waiting for him to finish pretending I was lucky to be tolerated. Then I said, I didn't marry your family, Richard. I married your daughter. He finally looked up. His smile was thin. And she married below her level, he said. I left his office without asking for permission. For the rest of the day, I buried myself in work. Numbers, reports, meetings, anything to keep my mind steady. Around noon, my wife texted, he was out of line last night. But please, don't make it worse. I read it twice, then locked my phone. By the time the office lights dimmed, I already knew. There was no fixing it. No earning back something that had never really been given. That night, I stood in the driveway, looking at the house Richard helped us buy. The mortgage was under my name, but it never felt like mine. Inside, she didn't ask what I planned to do. I think she already knew. She didn't say a word when I came in. She was sitting at the kitchen counter, scrolling through her phone, a half-empty glass of wine beside her. The TV was on, muted. I hung my jacket, stood there for a moment, waiting for her to look up. She didn't. Finally, I said, we need to talk. She sighed, still not meeting my eyes. Not tonight, please. I've had enough drama for one weekend. I nodded. It wasn't anger I felt, just distance. like we were standing in the same room, but on different sides of something invisible. I went upstairs, opened the drawer with my old notebooks and papers. Somewhere between those pages were the original employment agreements, the ones I'd signed when I joined the company. I read them slowly, line by line. There it was, a clause tying my position directly to my marriage. I hadn't noticed it before. At-will employment, subject to family trust interest. A clean way to own me. Downstairs, I heard her phone buzz again. A text, maybe from him. It didn't matter anymore. I folded the papers back into the drawer and sat on the edge of the bed. The next morning, I walked into the office early, before anyone else. I sat in my chair, staring at the walls covered in family photos. Richard shaking hands with governors, ribbon cuttings, awards. My picture was there too, in the background of one group shot, smiling like I belonged. I took it off the wall and laid it face down on the desk. At 10, we had the weekly operations meeting. Richard came in, cheerful, joking with the managers. When it ended, he looked straight at me and said, "Don't forget, we've got the board dinner Friday. Bring your wife. She makes you look respectable." A few people laughed. I didn't. Something in that room shifted. People stopped talking. Even he noticed. "You okay, son?" he said. I met his eyes. "I'm fine," I said. But the truth was, I wasn't part of that place anymore. Not in their eyes. Not in mine. When I left the room, I already knew what I'd do next. I didn't go back to my desk. Instead, I walked straight out of the building and sat in my car. The parking lot was half empty, the kind of quiet that makes your thoughts louder. My hands were on the steering wheel, but I wasn't driving. I just sat there, feeling the weight of the decision I'd been avoiding for years. Staying meant swallowing more of it. His control, his arrogance, the fake smiles. Leaving meant burning every bridge I'd ever built in that family. I called my lawyer. His name was Daniel, an old friend from college. We hadn't talked in months. When he picked up, I said, "I need to review my contract. Today." He didn't ask why, just said, "Come by at 2." When I got there, he spread the papers across his desk. I told him everything. How the contract tied me to the family trust, how Richard had humiliated me publicly, how I couldn't stay another day. Daniel leaned back, looking at me for a long time. "You know what walking away means, right? You lose your equity, your bonuses, the company car, the house, everything connected to the business." I nodded. "I know." He sighed. "Then let's make it clean." We spent hours going over every clause. The company's lawyers had written it to keep control tight. Salary tied to marriage, housing listed as a corporate benefit, shares under Richard's approval. It was all designed to make leaving painful. But that was fine. I didn't need his money. I needed my name back. When I left Daniel's office, the sun was low. I sat in my truck, staring at the stack of documents he'd given me to sign. My reflection in the window looked calm, not defeated. That's how I knew it was time. That night, I came home to find her in the kitchen again. She looked tired, like she'd been waiting for an argument. I put the folder on the counter. She asked, "What's that?" I said, "My resignation." Her face went pale. "You're quitting? Without talking to my father?" I said, "No, I'm quitting because I finally did." She stood there, staring at the folder like it was a weapon. "You can't just walk away," she said quietly. "He'll destroy you." I leaned against the counter, keeping my voice steady. "He already did. I'm just returning the favor by walking out with nothing he owns." She shook her head, trying to process it. "Do you even understand what this means? The house, the car, the health plan, it's all tied to him. To us." I opened the folder, pulled out the papers. Not anymore. She didn't argue after that. Just turned and went upstairs, closing the bedroom door behind her. The sound of it was final. I spent the night at the kitchen table, signing every page Daniel had marked. It was like slicing cords one by one. Each signature made me lighter, emptier, but calm. Around midnight, I emailed everything to him. By morning, it was done. At 8:30, I walked into Richard's office one last time. He was on a call, probably assuming I was there to apologize. I placed the resignation folder on his desk. He glanced at it, then at me. "What's this?" "My resignation. Effective immediately." He hung up the phone slowly, that practiced half-smile curling up. "Don't be dramatic. We can fix this. I'll move you to another department, keep you off the radar for a while." I shook my head. "I'm not asking for a transfer. I'm ending it." He laughed, short, cold. You think walking out makes you noble? You're finished without this company. No one hires a man who spits on his own family. I'm not your family, I said. He stared at me, waiting for me to back down. I didn't. Finally, he said, you'll regret this. Maybe, I said, but at least it'll be mine to regret. I walked out, past the same people who used to nod respectfully in the halls. No one said a word. No one stopped me. When I reached the parking lot, I looked back at the building for the last time. For years, I thought that place made me someone. But now, standing there with nothing but a folder under my arm, I realized I'd just gotten free. The day after I quit, the silence hit harder than I expected. No calls, no emails, no calendar reminders. Just stillness. My phone stayed face down on the table while I packed a small suitcase. She came downstairs halfway through, eyes red, still in her robe. You're really leaving? She asked. I zipped the bag and nodded. You can stay here. It's your family's house anyway. She hesitated, like she wanted to say something, but didn't. Instead, she asked, where will you go? I'll figure it out. That was the truth. I didn't have a plan. My name was still on the mortgage, but I wasn't about to fight over bricks her father technically owned. I just wanted space, clean air, no deals, no polite dinners. I rented a short-term apartment across town. Small place, 1 bedroom, cracked paint, a view of the parking lot. But it was quiet. No one cared who I was, and that was the best part. I spent the first week cleaning it, setting up a cheap desk, making coffee from an old machine. Every sound felt unfamiliar. Every minute stretched long. Richard didn't call, but word traveled fast. Friends from the office stopped texting after the second day. One of them, Mike, a guy I trained myself, sent a short message. They're saying you burned out. I didn't reply. Let them think whatever made them comfortable. By the second week, I met with Daniel again. He'd handled the paperwork cleanly, no loose ends. He can't touch you now, he said. You're out completely. I thanked him and transferred his fee. When I left his office, it started raining, thin and steady. I stood under it for a while before getting in the car. Nights were harder. The apartment echoed. I'd catch myself checking my phone, expecting her to text, but nothing came. Sometimes I wondered if she missed me, or if she'd just gone back to her father's house and erased me from the story. Still, every morning I woke up knowing one thing. I'd rather start from zero on my own than live another day being owned. 3 weeks passed before I heard from her again. She texted one afternoon, "Can we talk?" I stared at the message for a long time before typing back, "Sure." She came to the apartment that evening. No makeup, no rings, just a sweater and jeans. She looked smaller somehow. We sat at the tiny table, the one I'd bought for $50 from a thrift store. She glanced around, quiet, then said, "I didn't think you'd actually go through with it." "I didn't think I'd have to," I said. She folded her hands. "He's furious. Says you embarrassed the family. Says he'll make sure you never work in this town again." I almost laughed. "He can try." She looked at me, her eyes tired but searching. "You could fix it, you know. He'd take you back. He told me if you apologize, he'll reopen the position." I shook my head. "That's not a job. That's a leash." She didn't argue, just sat there, eyes glassy, whispering, "You're throwing everything away." "I already threw it away the night he called me trash," I said. We sat in silence for a while. Outside, a siren passed, fading into the distance. She finally stood up. "I'll stay with my parents for now," she said. "I need time." "I know." She hesitated at the door. "You're not the man I married," she said quietly. I looked at her, not angry, just steady. "No, I'm finally the man I was before I met them." After she left, I sat at that same table until the lights from the street turned the walls orange. For the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about pleasing anyone. I was thinking about starting something of my own. That night, I opened my laptop and began sketching out an idea. A small consulting firm. No investors, no family money, just skill and time. Something clean. Something mine. I didn't know if it would work, but I knew I'd rather fail free than succeed owned. The first few months were rough. I worked out of that same small apartment, running numbers on an old laptop, building proposals no one asked for. Most of the companies I reached out to didn't answer. A few remembered where I used to work and politely said they'd circle back. No one ever did. But then, one morning, I got an email from a mid-sized logistics firm. They'd heard about my background and wanted help restructuring their operations. The message ended with, "We don't care about your last name. We care about results." I stared at that line for a long time before replying yes. The project was small, barely enough to cover rent and food, but it was mine. I spent every waking hour working through their mess, late nights surrounded by takeout boxes and spreadsheets. For the first time in years, no one looked over my shoulder. No father-in-law checking numbers. No family dinners full of small insults disguised as jokes. Just me and the work. By the end of the quarter, the company's profits were up. They renewed the contract. Word spread quietly, nothing big, but enough to get me 2 more clients. I opened a business account, registered a name, printed cards. Simple white ones, no titles, no logos. One evening, while sending invoices, I got a text from an unknown number. "He's sick. Thought you should know." It was her. I didn't reply right away. I sat there, looking at the message. I wasn't sure what she wanted me to feel: guilt, relief, revenge. The truth was, I felt nothing sharp, just calm. A week later, she called. Her voice was soft. "He's in the hospital. He keeps asking if you'll come." I said, "He doesn't need me there." She paused. "He said he respects you now, that you proved him wrong." I almost smiled. He's wrong again. When we hung up, I sat in the dark, the phone still in my hand. I thought about how everything I'd built started the day he tried to break me. And for the first time, I realized I didn't need his respect to feel whole. I didn't go to the hospital. I couldn't. Not out of spite, just because there was nothing left to say. The man had built his life on control, and for the first time, he had none. That was his reckoning, not mine. A few days later, she showed up at my office. I'd just moved into a small space downtown, a single room above a hardware store, 2 desks, 1 coffee machine. She looked around quietly, taking it in. "You really did it," she said. I nodded. "Trying to." She handed me an envelope. Inside was a check, my share from the house sale. "It's yours," she said. "He can't touch it now?" I put it back in her hand. "Keep it. I'm fine." She looked at me like she wanted to argue, then just said, "You're different." I had to be. We stood there for a moment, not angry, not sad, just 2 people who'd run out of things to fix. When she left, I didn't watch her go. I just sat down and went back to work. That night, I stayed late. The building was quiet except for the hum of the streetlights outside. I looked around the office, bare walls, secondhand furniture, a small logo taped to the glass door. It wasn't much, but it was real. My phone buzzed once more. A message from Daniel. "He passed away this morning." I stared at the screen. No emotion came, no rush of memories. Just a slow, steady breath. I turned the phone face down and looked at the stack of invoices waiting on my desk. For a long time, I just sat there, listening to the city outside. Traffic, footsteps, the sound of people moving on. I closed my laptop, turned off the light, and stood by the window. Across the street, a neon sign flickered, half broken but still trying to stay lit. I grabbed my coat, locked the door behind me, and stepped out into the cold air. For the first time in years, no one was waiting to tell me who I was. Thanks for listening to the story till the end. Write in the comments what you think about all this. Subscribe. More untold stories are on the way.